you, Don.
My pleasure.
Mark Buckland, who I believe is out plowing, he sent me a notice that he didn't think he would make it. He is the Highway Department and Transfer Station Chief here in Bristol and has been a great resource as well and quite helpful in this whole process of figuring out what we're doing in Bristol. And then Bonnie Bethune is from Northeast Resource Recovery Associates. Bonnie has been really helpful in helping us figure out details about what is happening in New England in recycling. And I'm going to ask her at some point to step in and give us some ideas about trends, future trends and things that are happening in the state that are good for communities. And she can talk a little bit about that, but she's been instrumental in helping. And everyone else that has participated in this has played a big role. I just want to say a couple things by introduction. The first waste regulation that ever shows up in New Hampshire was in Portsmouth in 1799, when the state decided they were going to fund up to $10 to a person for throwing waste on the streets or in the waterways. And since that time, we have continued this way in New Hampshire, where municipalities are obliged to provide waste disposal services to the community. And the state's role is to regulate this for the betterment of the community and the environment and the resources in the state of New Hampshire. So this is something that we've been working on for hundreds of years already. I also want to point out that the Department of Environmental Services for the state of New Hampshire did a biennial solid waste report in 2019, where they took a look at what was happening. And one of the things they cited in that is that in the 3 years from 2015 to 2018, each year the amount of waste produced in New Hampshire increased. So that today we are producing 5.8 pounds per person per day of trash in the state of New Hampshire. At the same time, by 2025, New Hampshire will have exceeded capacity to dispose of our trash, largely because our landfills are filling up. And this is becoming a bigger problem in New Hampshire. So this report asks the state to look long and hard at what can be done and do more planning for the future on this, which brings us back to Bristol and what has been happening here. Looking ahead, there are some positive things, which was mentioned in the video, and Bonnie can talk about a little bit, and that is these new emerging markets to accept recyclables, which makes it more of a cost avoidance issue for a city to get back into recycling. There are many of us that have spent the last year working on this, and a lot of people over this process, for me, have asked me questions about what are other towns doing, when it comes right down to what's it's going to cost us and what are we actually going to recycle. I can talk about that a little more in detail, but I'm interested in hearing what your questions are around general recycling, and then more specifically, I think we can get into the warrant article itself if people want to. So let me just open this up, and if you want to just like raise your hand or jump in if you have a question, I will try to answer them, or other people that are here, feel free to jump in because I'm by no means an expert on this topic.
Well, I'm from New Hampton and I'm Barry Draper, and I am greatly impressed with what Bristol's doing. And I really feel like New Hampton can learn an awful lot from you. And I think it would be wonderful to work together. It took me a long time to even figure out where our waste is going. And it's mostly going to the incinerator like your waste is going. But I think cutting down on waste is probably the most important thing. but I am very impressed with what Bristol's doing. I love seeing your committee working, and I'm glad to see all these people. And New Hampton's got a lot to learn, and we'll listen.
Thank you.
Go ahead. Tom has a question.
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
Hi. Um, From Lakes Region Planning, they have done some studies. They're doing quite a bit on, dump transfer stations and so forth. And one of the things that I've heard is talking about trying to keep cat litter out of the waste stream. If you've ever picked up a box or a bag of cat litter and you know how heavy it is, and it's surprising, and you can get the figures from Lakes Region Planning about, if that can be, recycled or get taken out of the waste stream, it would save in tonnage. It's not something we think about, but when you see all the bags of cat litter go out of the store and see the boxes, it's something to explore and to be thinking about.
It doesn't burn well either.
No.
No, probably not.
And
And
there are some great alternatives. There's some cedar, it's called Cedarific, and it's bags of cedar shavings that can be burned if you have the proper facilities, and it's very, very, very light. So just something I just wanted to pass by everybody.
Thank you. It's unfortunately, if you start thinking about what you throw in your trash, there's problems with almost everything. And part of this is really a process of us being aware of it and understanding, and then being creative about, number one, how to use less trash, but also what other things we can do with it. I have to say that cat litter was not one of the things that came up in all the things that we've been trying to deal with, thinking about. But you're right, because the biggest expense of waste disposal for a municipality is the hauling fees, and which are determined by weight, by tonnage. And so in order to reduce the cost that we have as the town of Bristol, we have to reduce the weight that we're sending away. And the best way to do that is to separate some of it out and recycle it, because a lot of these things we can actually get revenue for now. But there's a lot of things that we have to be more creative about. And that comes into an education process, which I think we'll be working on as more and more of us learn more about this, trying to figure out, like you said, Tom, alternatives to what we're throwing in the trash.
So Janet, because you just used the word revenues, I'd like to hear more about the emerging markets and maybe related to that, why start with cardboard in terms of equipment to buy and really focus on bringing back recycling? Why cardboard? Is there a market for cardboard right now?
That's a really good question. I'm happy to talk about that, but I'm gonna ask Bonnie if you would be comfortable stepping in now and just talk a little bit about what you're seeing, because you have a broader view, I think, of the emerging markets in New England.
Well, the fun part is that I just got a call from New Hampton, and they have a load of cardboard. So at NRRA, I'm the commodities broker, so to speak. So I get to go to the mills and see what they would pay us for that load of cardboard, depending on what it is, depending on, what the weight of the load is. And we're talking a tractor trailer load. And the operators know when they have 48 bales, it's time to call NRRA and get it moved to market. So the fun part is figuring out where it needs to go, when it can get there, how we get it there, who's hungry. I say the mills are hungry. Sometimes they aren't, sometimes they're not. We're dealing with mills in the furthest we would go to mill direct would be to New York, We work with Massachusetts mills, New York, and Vermont, so the 3 states. So again, depending on what they need, my favorite question is a mill coming to me and saying, Bonnie, I need cardboard. And what our communities produce and what Bristol will eventually produce is a load of quality cardboard, because you're going into it eyes wide open. You know that you only can put corrugated cardboard in there, and you'll educate your people to do that. The markets are good right now. They're not hot, but they're good and they're steady. So I'm trying to think of how to do that. So you're paying, can somebody tell me how much you're paying per ton for your waste? Never mind about the hauling, but just what you pay per ton to get rid of your waste?
I think it's still about $70.
Okay, that's good compared
Might even
to,
be 78.
okay, the average is around 85. So what you'd get paid for that load of cardboard right now is 80. So there's your swing. You've got that whole, instead of throwing it away, every bit that goes in there is going to cost you that 70 plus. But if you put it in this bin and you get it processed, then it's going to bring in that revenue. And that's picked up at your facility. You don't have to take it anywhere. It's picked up right there once you've got that material in place. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think that was helpful. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey to cardboard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't mention that, but go ahead.
And I think a big piece of it is what Bonnie is talking about, because there are ready markets for it. When we started, and I'm talking about members of the Sustainability Committee started about a year ago, because the Select Board was really interested in trying to bring back recycling, but just didn't have the time to do all the research. And I'm going to tell you firsthand, there's an enormous amount of research that needs to be done on this. So we just started looking at what other communities were doing. And we actually toured over, I think, more than 10 different transfer stations and communities around the area, and found out that just about everybody is doing some kind of recycling, but it varies. And so then we started talking to them and finding out what's cost effective. Then we went back to Mark and we talked to the people at the transfer station in Bristol, and we said, what are some of the problems? And at that point in time, we had just redone the transfer station. And so we had these big compactors, and there were a couple of times in the summer, they just had to shut down because they filled up too fast. Cardboard is a huge part of that, because it's not weight, but it's volume. And as everyone here, I think, can attest to, we are all using more cardboard boxes now. So this becomes an issue right away that the town is looking at. Now, there are also, of course, plastic and aluminum cans and mixed paper. Our other items, glass, we're already separating and recycling, but there are other items that we need to look at and that we could recycle, which would help to reduce the amount of waste that we're hauling away. But when we started looking at, first of all, what's the need, what markets are available, then we started looking at what do we need to start recycling. And that took us to vendors and back to transfer stations that had different kinds of equipment. And it turns out that the first area that we actually looked at was just compacting cardboard, just putting it in a compactor and getting it hauled away. And we talked to several people, and they said, well, you can do that, but you'll get about half the money for it. So if you really want to start recycling, you should really invest in this baling equipment. Then we started looking at all different kinds of baling equipment. And baling equipment, you can get balers that, like Hannaford has a baler where they bale their cardboard. And you can only bale cardboard with it. But if you invest a little bit more money, you can get a baler that also allows you to bale plastics, mixed paper, and cans. So at some point in time, you have to look at what you're investing for your return. And we decided that the best thing for an immediate return would be to say, we can recycle cardboard first of all, right away. But if we invest in this kind of baler, it gives us the opportunity, as soon as we get set up in the transfer station and the markets are good, then we can also start recycling other items. So it was the need shown in Bristol and the money that's available right now that really drove us to look at cardboard first.
Definitely would just chime in on the cardboard that volume. It's about volume. You want to keep that out of your material, and it's we know it. You know, an aluminum can be a little bit tricky because, well, pet food cans are made out of aluminum too, right? So, you know, I think cardboard, once we get there, you're going to be very happy you made that decision for sure.
Bonnie, how often does New Hampton call to say they have 48 bales?
Probably 3 times a year, I would guess, without really looking at the data.
And how much bigger is Bristol than New Hampton?
Barry, do you know the population of New Hampton?
Brittany will look it up real quick.
Yeah, I can look it up, but I'll lose y'all. What do we think? 3,400, 3,800?
They're probably comparable then.
New Hampton is 2,100.
Oh, okay.
So
Probably
we're
closer
about 1,000
to
more.
Ashland. Might be,
Third smaller.
Mhm.
yeah.
Good to
smaller.
know.
So we made a projection on how much cardboard we would produce. We tried to get the transfer station to give us a guesstimate, and it just wasn't possible because they're not pulling it out. They did like a couple of times in March. We were sending it up to Ashland, but that was only just for a very short time, and then Ashland had to stop, and that didn't work in the long run. But Bonnie helped us figure out, based on what Ashland produces and then projecting to our larger population. So we figure we are going to produce about 55 tons of cardboard every year. That's a low estimate. And that calculates into like one haul a month. So one truck that we would haul out, now we won't have to haul because we're sending it in cardboard. So there's a lot of different ways to look at it, and a lot of it is projection, but we based it on what's happening in Ashland right now. And then our population's bigger, so projecting beyond that.
So basically what you just said was one of the compactors a month would not be going out with cardboard in it. In fact, if you put it all in there. Yeah.
Right.
That's a great way to look at it.
And that saves us about $265, I think, to haul that. So times 12, we're right away saving that in addition to the revenue. And there's a pretty regular market right now for cardboard locally. So it's a pretty sure thing. About half of the communities in New Hampshire do some kind of source separating, but it varies so much now. And one of the problems is that it is a burden on each community to do it. And so it becomes expensive when you have to do it each town. And so there's always possibilities of looking at regional plans and things like
Ask the
that.
question.
Okay.
Someone had a
Jan,
question.
will
Yes.
this cardboard, can you keep it outside, or does it need to be covered?
We're gonna cover it should be covered.
Right.
It has to be covered. It needs to be kept dry.
Okay.
Yeah. And you have to also be careful. You have to use just cardboard boxes, but this is an education process that I think we'll be able to do without too much trouble. We can get some volunteers to help pass out flyers if we have to. I'll sign up. But yeah, so we're building. So the plan is, if those of you in Bristol can envision the transfer station, the place where you put your glass in those little dumpsters, that will be moved, and that space right below that, which could hold a big compactor like where we throw our trash, there's going to be a building put there, maybe a 3-sided building. And that's where the cardboard compactor will go. And that is where it will be stored until we have too much. And then we will get one of those storage containers, which is part of the warrant article, that it'll just stay there until we have a tractor trailer full. And apparently when they come, they can take a full trailer, or if we only end up having a half a trailer, they will pick New Hampton's up and then ours up. You know, there's flexibility in doing this, but yes, we will have to store it, and that's included in the warrant article. And the storage container will also allow us, if we decide to bail other items and store them as time goes on.
And Mark had a very good idea to help, control and educate people, is where you would put the cardboard into the building would be more of a slot rather than a big opening. That way we're forcing people to break the boxes down. They can't just have all kinds of, huge boxes, which you can imagine pile up really quickly versus being flattened. And we'll have to educate people, have them there. Your pizza box that has half the cheese stuck to the lid is a big no-no. I think we can educate people.
Bonnie, what are the companies that buy the cardboard doing with it? What do they make out of the cardboard?
Bonnie.
Oop, you're muted.
You're on mute, Bonnie.
I should know this by now. What are they doing with it? They're either making new corrugated cardboard, or they're making, cardboard is a funny word. It's also chipboard. So if you have a cereal box, they call that cardboard because it's like card stock. But that's where we get in trouble, because it's not corrugated cardboard, it's cardboard. So it's that sort of product. Certainly we're not exporting. If there is, it's just a teeny bit of it being exported. It's mainly, again, the local, relatively local mills, New England plus New York.
Got it.
Yeah, I'd like to say something here. One of the problems with the single stream recycling that we were doing is lack of control, and that's how we noticed, it's being sent off to somewhere, to China or some other country, and we really didn't have control over that whole supply system, and we got in trouble for it. All of a sudden, wow, it's too expensive and we can't do it. The game plan here is to not so much that we're saving all kinds of money, but that we have control over our processes and our costs, rather than just trying to make money on it. And this way we'll be able to, cardboard was a very good target to start with, because there are markets for it out there. So we'll have that, and as Janet said, we can then look at doing plastic and other paper products and things like that. But the good thing that we're going to establish is that we're taking control of our waste problem.
And part of it is also recognizing that we have a waste problem. I think that's a huge thing that we don't know.
Yeah, that's true. Most people don't realize.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don, I think we are saving money though in the long run, in terms of stuff not going into it's taken away from our waste.
Oh yeah, no,
that's
the nice thing about Janet and her, targeted cardboard, because we're not only controlling that now, but we are making money. It's depending on what you want to look at, the payback. I mean, if you want to look at the entire cost of everything that we're using as far as capital capital funds and things like that, there's still probably less than an 8-year payback on the whole thing. The way we've done it with some of the saving money that's been saved in capital funds, the payback for the actual tax impact for this year is less than 2 years. So in 2 years, essentially, we'll be ahead of the game and sort of paying money back into the savings accounts that we borrowed from. You know, everybody wants
Yeah,
to know
that's a really good
payback, and
point, Juan.
there's so many different ways of looking at some things.
I think what's so exciting for the homeowners too, or the taxpayers, I should say, is their cost is quite low for this initial to get started, right? So I think that's another attractive thing.
Oh yeah, we worked it out pretty well.
I think you did a great job. I think you've all done a great job. And what's so exciting is the select board, Jan and Herb, and the people at the transfer station have all worked together to come together to do this. I think it's fantastic for Bristol. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's been a great team effort. I like the way.
Really, very impressive. Very impressive. Yeah. Thank you all.
I see some new faces, and I'm curious if anybody, please ask questions, or if you have any ideas or suggestions, this is the time to bring them up.
I do have a suggestion on on the gentleman who asked about the kitty litter. I would suggest talking to Jill over at BCEP in Barnstead, the regional facility, because they had an issue trying to compost kitty litter and they couldn't get it up to temperature to kill the pathogens. So it was a real problem. But I think they learned a lot in the process of what to do and what not to do. So that would be a good case study for you to go right to somebody who's actually tried it and worked with DES to, I don't know if they're still doing it or not, but they would have a lot of answers just because they got into it.
You know Jill's last name?
Lavin, Lavin.
Thank you.
Yeah. And can somebody tell, are you getting a horizontal or a vertical baler?
We're getting a horizontal,
Horizontal.
Good for you. Good for you.
hopefully.
Yeah. Well, there's several advantages for that. One is that, as Jan pointed out, it does more than just cardboard. You know, we can expand down the road. Another thing is it's somewhat portable. If we would say, you know, go together with Alexandria at some point,
Okay.
you know, our in-kind contribution could be the equipment if we were going to move that over to that facility. And the third thing, which we haven't really addressed even in the payback, is this process is going to take a few more hours on the guys at the transfer station. So somebody's actually going to have to be feeding the baler and pulling the bales out. That's not a trivial task. And vertical balers are much more labor intensive, where you have to have people, you know, actually feeding it and running it. I think they're a little more dangerous inherently as well, even though there's safeguards and things. But, you know, whenever you have somebody standing by one and running it like that, there's just more danger that way. With this one, it'll be one person that'd be running a skid steer to load it and unload it. And he's removed partly safety wise. And it's also, you don't need 2 or 3 guys. One person can do the work. So there's several advantages. I think the added cost is easily justified.
Good. That's a big step. And so we talked about with a vertical bale. Now, a vertical bale makes these chunks,
Right.
and you need 48 of them to fill up a tractor trailer, but horizontals are bigger. So you only need about 34 or 35. So when you start doing your calculations, you know, and space needs, you know, that's something to consider as well.
Yeah, I think the horizontal baler and cardboard is probably about a ton each, give or take.
Yep. Plymouth is getting a ton in.
Yeah.
You want to take some lessons from them because I don't know how they're doing it, to be
Yeah.
honest with you. That's a good bale if you can do that, and it takes time. But anybody else who doesn't know what a baler is, it basically a horizontal is spitting it out like a hay bale. That's the way it comes out. It comes out the side. It doesn't flop down the front like a vertical. It pushes to the side and it comes out. And when it's ready, you can just keep on loading and keep on loading, and it ties off. And is it automatic tie, or the guy's going to tie, or the girl's going to tie?
Haven't gotten to that point yet.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Hey, answer the phone.
My son's trying to call me.
But Don, is this something that we will be able to do with the staff we have now at the transfer station? It won't require new staffing.
That's still a little bit of a question mark. We might need, some more part-time help, or maybe add a few hours to the guys that are there. It's tough to pre-plan that. So I'm gonna give you a huge maybe. Sorry.
Yeah, but
We
it's
could do that.
doable. It's doable.
Yeah. It's not. We don't have to hire another full-time person or anything like that. It's
Great.
nothing extreme.
No,
Great.
and because we're not sure about it yet, it isn't included in the warrant article, and that's also the reason that we didn't jump into a whole lot of other recyclable items yet, because Mark feels that we should, get it going and organize it and see how it works with the staff that he has there.
Yeah, it might be, one of the guys comes in for a couple hours on an off day, a Tuesday, Thursday, to do the baling. We're gonna have to see how much it's going to be interesting just to find out how much volume there is and how much work it's going to be to bale it.
Yeah.
Well, everyone with their Amazon boxes from the winter, I think their basements are full. I think we'll be busy.
Yeah, they always put a box inside the box.
Any other concerns about other recycling issues or things that you would like more clarification on? Does everybody understand what a warrant article is?
Now, can you explain it to me?
Maybe, Don, you could spend a minute just explaining that to people, why it's different.
I don't even know where to go into starting it. Oh, I mean, every year town meeting, you have basically the warrant, and every individual item that you vote on is called an article. I mean, that even includes your election of officers. It includes all the planning boards. The one everybody, of course, focuses on is the operating budget. That's usually the largest warrant article. And then there's articles on other types of spending or other, services that you would want started. They don't have to involve money to be a warrant article. Changing the number of people on the planning board is one of the articles. So this particular one has, is a typical spending one where you specify what the purpose is, how much you need to appropriate, and they do gross appropriations. So just because you see $85,000 doesn't mean that's $85,000 in taxes. A warrant article will typically say where those monies would come from. This one happens to be two different capital reserve funds plus tax appropriation. So the tax appropriation, I believe in it, is just $22,500 out of that $85,000.
Janet, I have a question, this can be directed to Don and Anita as well. We've talked a lot about sort of the business side, the cost side, but of course we know recycling is the right thing to do for us, for the planet. And I'm just curious if Janet, in your touring around the state, if you talked about that aspect with any of the other transfer stations, or Don and Anita, if this somehow fits into some kind of vision that the select board has for Bristol, how does that part play a piece in doing this?
Well, let me just say briefly, I would like Donna and Anita to respond to that. It's a really good question. It's interesting because I went down to a Pittsfield where they have a regional recycling center there. 4 communities are part of it, and they are so proud of what they are doing there. And they recycle every single thing there. The only thing they don't do is compost. And they said they were so apologetic about it, but they're just like so proud of it. And then I went up to Ashland, which is, they also recycle everything up there. And there's like 2 guys that work there, and they were just like, oh, the people, we always got to tell people what to do, and we always got to be careful. And so people try to throw everything in the recycling, but mostly people are really happy to do it. And we try to keep the cost down, and it's not a big project. So in my discoveries, the workers that worked in these facilities, the people that were coming to throw their trash, everybody understood that it was a good thing to do, and it might be a little cumbersome, it might get dirty, there might be some problems, but there was nobody that I heard complaining about it. So I felt really positive about that. In fact, people were all really proud of what they were doing, which made me feel good.
I think that's what people really want. They want to start feeling good about this, because it's been kind of shameful. We were really sad when it got cut off at the dump. I guess I understand it more now. I've heard some of the things, the reasons, but things not being able to be sent to China anymore. And I get that, but well, not anyone, but a lot of people that you talk to in town really want to see some things done about this, and the board certainly does. And I think they're very willing to obviously support the sustainability committee. This is wonderful. I'm really impressed with this whole thing. This is very good. You guys have put a lot of work into this, so I thank you.
Thank you.
This has been a long process. This has been a lot of conversations and a lot of kind of taking a deep breath and saying, okay, what's really important to get to.
Yeah,
and
I can tell. I'm new to the
kind of
party.
back saying, good job, guys. Good job.
Yeah, the sustainability committee has done a fabulous job, even better than I expected. Great things just because of knowing the people that are on it, and you've met or exceeded my expectations.
Wow.
I think it says a lot that it was very much unanimous support by the board that started it when you first brought the idea there. And I don't think any of that support has waned at all. That the board doesn't, we really don't have an official policy or anything like that on recycling, but I know everybody there is in favor of it. And one of the factors is cost always, but it doesn't have to be this has to make money for us to do it. I think the feeling there, and the feeling of most people in town, is even if it costs a little bit more money, it's still the right thing to do, and it's what we should do. When it gets outrageous and doubles your costs, that gets prohibitive, and then you have to be fiscally responsible, and that's why we had to stop the single stream stuff. But I think we're going to continue this momentum that we're starting here. I'm hopeful that the town will accept it in March, and it'll be step one of a lot of good steps. And I for one, and I know Anita feels the same on this, is we'll definitely still be advocates of this type of thing on the board for our terms.
Absolutely.
I think in my travels around Bristol itself, putting up flyers and just talking to people generally about it, the only concern that has really been raised is the cost factor. And I think we looked really carefully at, especially in this year of the pandemic and the economics that are happening in the state, and the ways that it's affecting everyone, from the businesses to, you know, people that have lost their jobs, to the horrible pressure on the school budget, that we have to be really careful when we're spending money. And I think our committee looked really hard at that and decided that, number one, the town is ready to look at this seriously, but number two, it's a good time to start it because of the investment. First of all, because there is these new emerging markets now that will provide revenue, so that, as Don said, it becomes, you're not making a profit per se because you're paying for equipment, but once the equipment is paid for, then it is revenue coming into the town. And it's, in the meantime, it's a cost avoidance. It's lowering our costs, which is helpful. And once we started looking at it that way, and we went to the town, then the town was able to find money that had been sitting in the budget waiting for recycling or waiting for something in the transfer station. And so we said, all right, let's just use that now so that we can move forward. And I think that we're going to continue to see, not only in Bristol, but across New Hampshire, the prices to haul away trash are just going to continue to go up. So it's almost like we have to do something. If we don't do it now and we put it off, we're going to inherit this problem down the road. So I think that's what I always say to people when they're concerned about the cost. The other thing is that it's going to be one time only. It's not going to be added to every time you go to the transfer station, you know, for the rest of your life. It's a one-time cost. And if you have $100,000 home, you're going to pay $4 for this, which is an incredible investment in my mind. And I think that we spent a lot of time really seriously thinking about this, and that's what we came to. Someone's talking in the background.
Not me.
Not me. Anyone else? I don't want to keep you. Anybody have any last thoughts? Or I just want to put in a plug. I'm not going to stop yet, but I want to put in a plug for if you're interested in what's happening with recycling, take a look at what's going on in Vermont with their composting.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like, it's like the world of discussion composting, because their people are upset about it. People are loving it. It's created all these new crazy job opportunities, people having pickup trucks and hauling people's compost. And I mean, it's a very exciting thing. And compost takes up between 25 to 40% of the waste that we dump. If you think about that, it's just unbelievable. So we didn't get into composting. Composting is controversial because of the regulations. There's problems with doing it in New Hampshire. But I just encourage people, if you're interested in exploring this a little bit, look in Vermont, because there's all kinds of cool stuff to learn about what's happening there.
Can we send all of our cat litter over to Tom Keegan?
No.
Well,
No, Janet, just one more thing. I think the people who are here probably are all believers in recycling and probably composting. So if you believe this is a good thing, please go to the town meeting, bring 4 of your friends. We need to have this passed, because we don't want to wait. We'll have to wait another year if we don't get it passed at town meeting this time. So bring your friends. The select board's behind this. It's not going to cost a lot of money to start. It'll make us money. So please show up.
I want to thank Jan and the committee, excuse me, and the committee for all this work you've done. This is fantastic. I know probably, I don't know, it's been 10, maybe even 15 years ago when we first had an energy committee in town. And it's just wonderful to see this kind of committee happening and so many people involved. That's great. Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in. I just really appreciate this, and it encourages the work that we're doing to see the kind of response we're getting from it. And Nancy already made my pitch for me, so I don't have to say that. It is really important. I'm worried about the meeting in all regards because of the pandemic, and that people are going to be nervous about coming out and voting. So hopefully they'll figure out ways like they did with the school budget to let people be in smaller rooms if they're more comfortable that way. But anyway, it's very important, and I'm really happy to see you all come, and I want to thank you all for taking some time out. Any last words?
Just wanted to let you know, I thought you did an awesome job on that video. That was so well spelled out, and it was great. It really taught me a lot. I thank you. You did a nice job.
And I think really the one thing I have learned from being on the sustainability committee is really paying attention to what we throw away and how we use things. And it's easy if you just become aware to start cutting back. And it seems like an insurmountable task, but if like we are learning so much through this pandemic, each one of us has something important to do to change the world. And just even that is going to be a way to start and to help. So.
Janet, I just want to say thank you to you and Herb for all the work that you did to bring it to the level that it is at now. Being new on the committee, I'm just in awe of all the work and how far you've brought it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
Okay.
I
Anyone
get,
else?
I get
Anyone
to
else
talk.
want-
I get to talk to operators all day long, and I have the greatest respect for what they do and how they quietly do it. And I've known Mark for probably almost 20 years now, and I know how hard it is to have two hats, to be taking care of all of the town roads and all of that, and to be thinking about the transfer station. So I could tell that, this group has really helped that immensely. To get things moving. So very exciting. And I do want to get back to Lauren with a better answer on what happens to the material at the mills, because that's a big question that we are answering one commodity at a time at NRRA, to be incredibly just clear as we can be on where this material is going. And so we don't have a China situation again. So we're on it. We'll let you know on that.
Good. Thank you, Bonnie, for all your help too.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime.
Yeah.
I'll be
Did we
anxious to
lose-
hear how it goes.
Yeah. Did we lose Brittany? Oh, no.
I'm still here, and I'll just say just very, very quickly, if anyone has follow-up questions after, still concerns, feel free to reach out to the library. We're happy to gather information and connect you with the sustainability committee. But if you're looking for another source of information, we're happy to provide that.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you so much. All right. Thanks everybody for coming. It's great to hear your ideas.
Nice to
Show
meet
up
you
on
all.
the
Thanks so much
13th.
for
Thank you.
coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to everybody. And Janet, we will get together.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.
Don't get stuck in the snow on the way home.
Okay.